promiscuous conversation, and there's one example I'd give in the UK. There's a guy called Anjem Choudary, who was a very prominent, led a tiny number of British Muslims, but a really very, very vehement and violent group. And 10 years ago or so, I was challenged to a debate by a student society in London with him, and I said I'd do it, and it turned out to be a front group and things, and there ended up being a kind of riot in the London streets, and the police asked me not to come, but I said, hell, it's my capital city, I'll come. In fact, not only did they duff up a colleague, but the police got there in time to get me out. But the bit we did have in the street was very, very helpful. Firstly, because I got him to say something I'd always thought he thought, and he said it in public. And secondly, that on the basis of that event, the terrorist group which he was leading was shut down by the British government, finally. And I know that the security services and the police were taking photos, and that in the 1 year after it, by about a year after that occasion, at least half a dozen of the people who were in front of me with Anjem Choudary had been sent to prison for trying to kill people. And I was very pleased that this event had smoked them out, and they'd appeared in public, and okay, they shouted vile stuff at me and so on. It wasn't very pleasant to have 100 jihadis against me in the street, but it turned out to do an immense amount of good. And we met on subsequent occasions in slightly more studio-like environments. And again, you could...
Wow, stay with me, folks, because we're going to be showing you another clip here of who is this Anjem Choudary, this Islamist who was jailed in England, got released, and has been sentenced to jail again in July of 2023. But we're going to do this piece here. It's fascinating, folks, fascinating. And wasn't it absolutely incredible? Douglas Murray was the one that was able to get this guy, the whole ball sort of rolling, to finally have the British government look into this guy and see this Islamist, fundamentalist terrorist for who he really was, heading this group now, which has been outlawed. This group, Hizb ut-Tahrir, it's outlawed in I don't know how many Muslim countries, because they try to overthrow those Muslim countries, because those Muslim countries, these people feel, aren't Muslim enough even for these Islamists. They want some other theocratic type of, Islamist society going on. Not even the ones that are not even Muslim countries right now, these guys, what they want to overthrow their governments. Let's get to that video right now. You're watching the Dr. Nasir Shaikh Show. I'm your host, Dr. Nasir. Let's get to it right now.
A reputation as a rabble-rouser who refused to condemn Al-Qaeda's attacks in the US, the UK and beyond.
What took place on 9/11 or 7/7 or 3/11, 3/7, I believe, in Madrid. I can see that they have an Islamic justification.
Anjem Choudary did nothing to assuage his critics and everything to antagonize them. This is his vision for the UK.
Of course, alcohol will be banned, drugs will be banned, pornography will be banned, gambling will be banned, but the money...
The Queen?
There'll be no monarchy.
A former hard-partying law student, he grew into a hardcore Islamist. Along with his leader, radical cleric Omar Bakri Fostock, he ran the now outlawed Al-Majroon group that inspired a young British Muslim to detonate a suicide bomb in Mike's Place, a pizza parlor in Tel Aviv, Israel, in 2003. 3 people were killed, 50 wounded. Following the Al-Qaeda attacks on the London Underground and bus network, killing 52 people in 2005, Bakri fled Britain. Choudary, a British citizen, did not, taking leadership for outspoken Muslim radicals here. He seemed to seek out controversy here and wanted to spread his divisive message in America.
I do believe that the Muslims in America are possibly 5 or 10 years behind in terms of the struggle that they're engaging in.
When asked on CNN if he'd condemned the killing of American journalists James Foley and Stephen Sotloff in Syria, he refused.
Well, quite frankly, I think it's completely pathetic and absurd for you to ask a Muslim to condemn the killing of one individual when hundreds of thousands of Muslims being slaughtered, of which you don't know the name.
Choudary now reportedly arrested on suspicion of terror-related offences. Few in the UK will mourn his silencing, however short it may be.
Folks, this is the face of evil incarnate. This is the face of evil right here, folks. He's not a Muslim, knows nothing about the religion of Islam. He's trying to preach his theocratic caliphate, kingdom that is just completely antithetical to anything that is about Islam. It's like I told you, he wants to bring about the downfall, not only in London, and not only in America and Western societies. This guy with, Al-Majroon and Isbat Tahir and all these other Islamist terrorist, fundamentalist groups, they want to even bring down Muslim countries right now. So whatever you want to call them, Muslim countries. That's what he's trying to do. Now we've got another video following this one, folks, here, which basically is talking about what he wants to do with Sharia law. So let's get to that video right now.
To abandon the faith, apostasy. You believe that? How can you say that this is a tolerant religion?
Well, I think that one needs to appreciate that the word Islam is derived from the root word istislam, which means submission. Therefore, the Muslim is the one who submits entirely to the Sharia, the divine law of God. Hence, toleration is something which is, if you like, defined by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God. Therefore, if something is in accordance with the Sharia, we tolerate it. If it is outside of the Sharia, we cannot tolerate it. Hence, for example, Islam will tolerate non-Muslims to live among the Muslims within the Sharia under an Islamic state. Their life, wealth, their honor, their dignity will be protected. They will get the basic needs of food, clothing and shelter. But at the end of the day, we cannot tolerate adultery, fornication, we cannot tolerate apostasy, not because this is from our own whims and desires, but this is enshrined within the Quran and the Sunnah of the Messenger Muhammad.
So what should happen to an adulterer?
Well, the Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that, as narrated in the Quran, that the one who commits adultery, he will be stoned to death, and the one who commits fornication, who is not married, they will get 100 lashes, and that will be done publicly. And for your information, if you look in the history of Islam, there were, for example, only about 60 reported rapes when the Sharia was implemented. There were only about 120 hands ever cut. So it is not only a harsh a punishment which is fitting, but it is also a great deterrent within society, and it will rid society of many of the ills
Britain would be a better
that we
place.
have. I believe that Britain would never be better than when the Sharia has been implemented.
I don't know. Sorry.
So there you heard it, folks. You heard it from the face of this extremist, from the face of this terrorist, from the face of this Islamist, basically saying that Sharia law needs to be implemented in Great Britain, not only in Great Britain, but they want to implement it around the whole world. There are Muslim countries that don't even have everything with Sharia law. They've got their man-made laws, they've got some Sharia laws, they've got some mix of this and that. Even they're not even looking to be as extreme as this guy. But this is what he wants to do. He says that England and everyone will be a much better place for it by implementing these laws. Now, as I've said before, if there's a country and the majority of the people, whether it's a republic, whether it's a democracy, whether it's a communist state, or whether it's a socialist state, or whatever, Marxist, who cares, whatever it is, and there's a country and they want to implement whatever laws they want to do, if they want to implement laws which they think are theocratic from the words of their holy book, from their religion, and the majority of people want to do that, and they voted that way, that's perfectly fine because they're doing it in their country. We don't want them to impose their laws on Western European laws or on America or any of the so-called Western developed countries. We're pretty good ourselves. Now, if you want to practice your own religion, your own faith, and that's it, that's perfectly fine. But when you start telling and you start doing what this guy wants to do, establish a theocratic state. He wants to get rid of the monarchy, get rid of the queen, folks. In other words, he'd be getting rid of the presidency of the United States, the Congress, the Supreme Court, all the Western European ideas of, human rights, human dignity, property rights, women's rights, all those. Now, although some of these have been enshrined within the different faiths, in Islam, is that if you're taking a look at what you're seeing, what these guys want to implement, it has nothing to do with Islam, nothing at all. It is their own warped, theocratic version of what they think Islam is, according to their twisted interpretation. I mean, why is it that when asked about this Islamist terrorist, and they ask other Muslim leaders or clerics, and they ask and say, do his views of what he wants, does that have anything to do with Islam? Why is it that every single one of them, other than the ones that follow people like him and other Islamist leaders and ISIS and Al Qaeda and the others out there, the terrorist groups, they follow someone like him? But the moderates, no, they don't. This guy, and this is the one that Douglas Murray outed at that time. And I believe in July he was convicted again. And I believe he's in jail right now or pending trial to go forward. That happened. So let's see what happens. It's a huge story out in England. This guy needs to be put away forever, folks. In England, across the pond, come on, guys. You got to do what you got to do. All right? Pressure your groups out there. Pressure the press. Pressure your politicians. This guy cannot be let out as he was before. We appreciate you taking the time to watch, folks. You've been watching the Dr. Nasir Shaikh Show. I've been your host. My name is Dr. Nasir. You know what to do. Like, share, and follow us. Hit that subscription button if you liked our content. Comment below. Let us know what you think of this guy. In the meantime, my final thought, when you're right, you're right. And when you're left, you're wrong. Until next time, folks, take care and stay safe.